Nitil Pavishta Vishnupar Ashtar Ashatashmar Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishta Vishnupar Ashtar Ashatashmar Srila Bhakti Vigyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishta Vishnupar Ashtar Ashatashmar Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishta Mahabhagavat Srila Bhaksharas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Patadash Raghunath Shar Gosai Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shiva Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai. Namachay Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Gaur Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Kshetra Mandal Coromandal Vajramandal Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sarva Abhishtabhadati Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Radhakund Shamakund Ki Jai. Shri Mona Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya Ki Jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shinitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Gaur. Just checking to see if today's a special day. Alright. Om Jnanatamiran Dandavat Pranam Zevati and Raseshwari Mataji. Om Jnanatirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Śrīmad Bhakti Vedanta Narayana Namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhakti Vedanta Swamine Namine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pravanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam Pravrjantam Anupetam Apeta Krityam Tvaipayano Virahakatara Ajuhavo Putreti Tanmayataya Taravo Binedus Tang Sarva Bhutta Hridaya Munimanatosmi. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Shinvatang Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridantastoya Bhadrani Vedanati Suritsatam. Nashta Prayeshva Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Tavai Vasmi Na Jivami Tvaya Vinam Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayamam Charanantikam. Bhakta Vihina Aparada Lakshaya Shiptashtakama Titarangamade Kripa Maitam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam. Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare Hare. Where am I? Okay. And I just want to do a little bit more of a thorough recap because I'm not so clear about what's going on right now. Also, I'm, in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Right now is also a bit of a crazy time for me. I went to sleep at 2:30 a.m. this morning, and so I'm not able to like focus so much, and so it's easy for me to get lost. So I'm just gonna recap a bit. And I'll stop to wherever we get to at 8 o'clock. I'll just stop there. So if we don't make it to verse 33, I'll just stop before that. So, so Devahuti, she began to question Lord Kapila. She said, I'm very sick of the disturbance caused due to my material senses, by which I have fallen into ignorance. You are my transcendental eye, and the one who makes me cross over this ignorance. After many births, today I attained you by your mercy. You have arisen like the sun to dissipate the darkness of ignorance of the universe. And now this is her first question. Please dispel my illusion of aham mameti, of this false identification of I and everything related to this body as being mine. Please help me dispel this illusion of aham mameti due to my false ego created by your maya. I take your shelter because you are the only person whom to take shelter. You are the axe which can cut the tree of material existence of your devotees, and you are the best of the knowers of bhakti. So please explain about the jiva in the material world, the purush, and prakriti. So purush means the enjoyer, and really the only true purush is Krishna. And where the jivas are meant to be enjoyed, prakriti. But because of our false ego in this material world, then we are trying to be the purush, the enjoyers. So now Kapila Muni, hearing his mother's uncontaminated desire for increasing the liberation of humanity, Lord Kapila thanked her mentally and explains the path of devotees. So first he explains Adhyatmika Yoga. I consider Adhyatmika Yoga, that's the yoga system concerning the soul, as the most beneficial, as it causes detachment from material happiness and distress. And Adhyatmika Yoga, the yoga system concerning the soul, consists of three types. First type is bhakti, second is jnana, or sankhya, and the third type is ashtanga yoga, or yoga. So this is the seed verse expanding these three topics into 8 chapters of Sankhya Yoga. The verse, So Bhakti, Gyan, and Ashtanga Yoga. And the next 8 chapters will be describing Sankhya Yoga. All the limbs of this ancient yoga system are easy to perform. I explained this to the great sages earlier, and now I will explain to you. The mind is the pivot. If the mind is attached to material modes, it causes bondage, and if it is attached to the Supreme Lord, it causes liberation. Now, symptoms of a liberated mind. When one's mind is cleansed of the impurities like lust and greed produced from the false ego, one transcends material happiness and distress. The pure soul's vision. At that time, the soul can see the self to be transcendental, self-effulgent, never fragmented, although very minute in size. How does the mind reach this stage? By bhakti endowed with jnana and vairagya, one sees everything in the right perspective. He becomes indifferent to material existence, and the material influence acts less powerfully on him. By bhakti endowed with jnana and vairagya. The glory of bhakti. Bhakti is the only auspicious path. Perfection and self-realization cannot be attained by any kind of yogi unless he engages in bhakti, for that is the only auspicious path. But how to get bhakti? Materialistic association is the greatest entanglement, but association of sadhus opens the door of liberation. And now he's explaining the characteristics and activities of a sadhu. And this is, okay, so the secondary characteristics of a sadhu is that he's tolerant, merciful, friendly to all beings, without enemies, peaceful, and abides by the scriptures. And then the primary characteristics is that he engages in staunch and ananya and one-pointed devotional service to the Lord without deviation. And he renounces all material actions and relations to attain the Lord. And now these are his activities. His activities are absorption in hearing, chanting, and remembering me, and thus he does not suffer from material miseries. And now we're going to read about associate with sadhus to get prem. All right, so sorry, that was a bit of a long recap, but I needed that just so that I can know where we are. One second. There. Okay. Yeah, engaged constantly in chanting and hearing about me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The sadhus do not suffer from material miseries because they are always filled with thoughts of my pastimes and activities. Ta ete sadhava sadvi sarva sangha vivarjita sangaste shvata te partya sangha dosha harahite. O my mother, O virtuous lady, these are the qualities of great devotees who are free from attachment, from all attachment. You must seek the attachment to such holy men, for this counteracts the pernicious effects of material attachment. Purport. Kapila Muni herein advises his mother Devahuti that if she wants to be free from material attachment, she should increase her attachment for the sadhus, or devotees who are completely freed of all material attachment. In Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter, verse 5, it is stated, who is qualified to enter into the kingdom of Godhead?
Okay.
It is said there, Nirmana Moha Jita Sangha Dosha. This refers to one who is completely freed from the puffed up condition of material possessiveness. A person may be materially very rich, opulent, or respectable, but if he at all wants to transfer himself to the spiritual kingdom, back home, back to Godhead, then he has to be freed from the puffed up condition of material possessiveness, because that is a false position. The word moha used here means the false understanding that one is rich or poor. In this material world, the conception that one is very rich or very poor, or any such consciousness in connection with material existence, is false, because this body itself is false or temporary. A pure soul who is prepared to be freed from the material entanglement must first of all be freed from the association of the three modes of nature. Our consciousness at the present moment is polluted because of association with the three modes of nature. Therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, the same principle is stated. It is advised, Jitta Sangha Dosha. One should be freed from the contaminated association of the three modes of material nature. Here also, in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, this is confirmed. A pure devotee who is preparing to transfer himself to the spiritual kingdom is also freed from the association of the three modes of material nature. We have to seek the association of such devotees. For this reason, we have begun the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. There are many mercantile, scientific, and other associations in human society to develop a particular type of education or consciousness. But there is no association which helps one to get free from all material association. If anyone has reached the stage where he must become free from this material contamination, then he has to seek the association of devotees, wherein Krishna consciousness is exclusively cultured. One can thereby be freed from all material association. Because a devotee is freed from all contaminated material association, he is not affected by the miseries of material existence. Even though he appears to be in the material world, he is not affected by the miseries of the material world. How is it possible? There is a very good example in the activities of the cat. The cat carries her kittens in her mouth, and when she kills a rat, she also carries the booty in her mouth. Thus, both are carried in the mouth of the cat, but they are different conditions. But they are in different conditions. The cat feels comfort in the mouth of the mother, whereas when the rat is carried in the mouth of the cat, the rat feels the blows of death. Similarly, those who are sadhava, or devotees engaged in Krishna consciousness in the transcendental service of the Lord, do not feel the contamination of material miseries, whereas those who are not devotees in Krishna consciousness actually feel the miseries of material existence. One should therefore give up the association of materialistic persons and seek the association of persons engaged in Krishna consciousness, and by such association, he will benefit in spiritual advancement. By their words and instructions, he will be able to cut off his attachments to material existence. Oh my God, this is a very common verse. If somebody doesn't know this verse watching this, then they really memorize it. It's very important. Satam prasangam mama virya samvido bhavanti hritkarna rasayana kata tajoshanar ashvapavargavartmani shraddharatir bhaktir anukramishati. In the association of pure devotees, discussion of the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and heart. By cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation, and thereafter he is freed and his attraction becomes fixed. Then real devotion and devotional service begin. Purport. The process of advancing in Krishna consciousness and devotional service is described here. The first point is that one must seek the association of persons who are Krishna conscious and who engage in devotional service. Without such association, one cannot make advancement. Simply by theoretical knowledge or study, one cannot make any appreciable advancement. One must give up the association of materialistic persons and seek the association of devotees, because without the association of devotees, one cannot understand the activities of the Lord. Generally, people are convinced of the impersonal feature of the absolute truth. Because they do not associate with devotees, they cannot understand that the absolute truth can be a person and have personal activities. This is a very difficult subject matter, and unless one has personal understanding of the absolute truth, there is no meaning to devotion. Service or devotion cannot be offered to anything impersonal. Service must be offered to a person. Non-devotees cannot appreciate Krishna consciousness by reading the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam or any other Vedic literature wherein the activities of the Lord are described. They think that these activities are fictional, manufactured stories because spiritual life is not explained to them in the proper mood. To understand the personal activities of the Lord, one has to seek the association of devotees, and by such association, when one contemplates and tries to understand the transcendental activities of the Lord, the path to liberation is ocean. Why did I say ocean? The path to liberation is open, and he is freed. When one contemplates and tries to understand the transcendental activities of the Lord, the path to liberation is open, and he is freed. One who has firm faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes fixed, and his attraction for association with the Lord and the devotees increases. Association with devotees means association with the Lord. The devotee who makes this association develops the consciousness for rendering service to the Lord, and then, being situated in the transcendental position of devotional service, he gradually becomes perfect. Bhaktya pumanjata viraga aindriyad trishta shrutanmat rachananuchintaya chittasya yato grahane yoga yukto yatishyate vrijubhir yoga margai. Thus, consciously engaged in devotional service and the association of devotees, a person gains distaste for sense gratification, both in this world and in the next, by constantly thinking about the activities of the Lord. This process of Krishna consciousness is the easiest process of mystic power. When one is actually situated on that path of devotional service, he is able to control the mind. Purport. In all scriptures, people are encouraged to act in a pious way so that they can enjoy sense gratification, not only in this life, but also in the next. For example, one is promised promotion to the heavenly kingdom of higher planets by pious fruitive activities. But a devotee in the association of devotees prefers to contemplate the activities of the Lord, how he has created this universe, how he is maintaining it, how the creation dissolves, and how in the spiritual kingdom the Lord's pastimes are going on. There are full literatures describing these activities of the Lord, especially Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Samhita, and Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. The sincere devotee who associates with devotees gets the opportunity to hear and contemplate the subject of the pastimes of the Lord, and the result is that he feels distaste for so-called happiness in this or that world, in heaven or on other planets. The devotees are simply interested in being transferred to the personal association of the Lord. They have no more attraction for temporary so-called happiness. That is the position of one who is yoga yukta. One who is fixed in mystic power is not disturbed by the allurement of this world or that world. He is interested in the matters of spiritual understanding or the spiritual situation. This sublime situation is very easily attained by the easiest process, bhakti yoga. Rijubhir yoga margai. A very suitable word used here is rijubhi, or very easy. There are different processes of yoga marga, attaining yoga perfection. But this process, devotional service to the Lord, is the easiest. Not only is it the easiest process, but the result is sublime. Everyone, therefore, should try to take this process of Krishna consciousness and reach the highest perfection of life. Asevayayam prakriter gunanam jnanena vairagya vrijambhitena yogena mayarpitaya cha bhaktya mam pratyagatmanam iha varute. Thus, by not engaging in the service of the modes of material nature, but by developing Krishna consciousness, knowledge and renunciation, and by practicing yoga, in which the mind is always fixed in the devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one achieves my association in this very life, for I am the Supreme Personality, the Absolute Truth. Purport. When one engages in devotional service to the Lord in the 9 different kinds of bhakti yoga, as enunciated in authoritative scriptures, such as hearing, shravanam, chanting, kirtanam, remembering, offering worship, praying, and offering personal service, either in one of them, or 2 of them, or 3, or all of them, he naturally has no opportunity to engage in the service of the 3 modes of material nature. Unless one has good engagements in spiritual service, it is not possible to get out of the attachments to material service. Those who are not devotees, therefore, are interested in so-called humanitarian or philanthropic work, such as opening a hospital or charitable institution. These are undoubtedly good works in the sense that they are pious activities, and the result is that the performer may get some opportunities for sense gratification, either in this life or in the next. Devotional service, however, is beyond the boundary of sense gratification. It is completely spiritual activity. When one engages in the spiritual activities of devotional service, naturally he does not get any opportunity to engage in sense gratificatory activities. Krishna conscious activities are performed not blindly, but with perfect understanding of knowledge and renunciation. This kind of yoga practice, in which the mind is always fixed upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead in devotion, results in liberation in this very life. The person who performs such acts gets in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Chaitanya therefore approved the process of hearing from the realized devotees about the pastimes of the Lord. It does not matter to what category of this world that audience belongs. If one meekly and submissively hears about the activities of the Lord from a realized soul, he will be able to conquer the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is unconquerable by any other process. Hearing or associating with devotees is the most important function for self-realization. Devahuti Ruvacha Kachitvayuchita bhakti kedrishi mama gochara yaya padam te nirvanam anjasan vashnavad aham. On hearing this statement of the Lord, Devahuti inquired, "What kind of devotional service is worth developing and practicing to help me easily and immediately attain the service of your lotus feet?" What kind of devotional service is worth developing and practicing to help me easily and immediately attain the service of your lotus feet? Sorry, just wanted to get that. Purport. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that no one is barred from rendering service to the Lord. Whether one is a woman, or a laborer, or a merchant, if he engages himself in the devotional service of the Lord, he is promoted to the highest perfectional state and goes back home, back to Godhead. The devotional service most suitable for different types of devotees is determined and fixed by the mercy of the spiritual master. Yo yogo bhagavar bano nirvanatmam tvayodita kedrisha katichangani yatastatva vabodhanam. The mystic yoga system, as you have explained, aims at the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is meant for completely ending material existence. Please let me know the nature of that yoga system. How many ways are there by which one can understand in truth that sublime yoga? Purport. There are different kinds of mystic yoga systems aimed for different phases of the absolute truth. The Jnana Yoga system aims at the impersonal Brahman effulgence, and the Hatha Yoga system aims at the localized personal aspect, the Paramatma feature of the absolute truth. Whereas Bhakti Yoga, or devotional service, which is executed in 9 different ways, headed by hearing and chanting, aims at complete realization of the Supreme Lord. There are different methods of self-realization, but here Devahuti especially refers to the Bhakti Yoga system, which has already been primarily explained by the Lord. The different parts of the Bhakti Yoga system are hearing, chanting, remembering, offering prayers, worshipping the Lord in the temple, accepting service to Him, carrying out His orders, making friendship with Him, and ultimately surrendering everything for the service of the Lord. The word nirvanatman is very significant. That word is very significant in this verse. Unless one accepts the process of devotional service, one cannot end the continuation of material existence. As far as Gyanis are concerned, they are interested in Gyan Yoga. For even if one elevates oneself after a great performance of austerity to the Brahman effulgence, there is a chance of falling down again to the material world. Therefore, Jnana Yoga does not actually end material existence. Similarly, regarding the Hatha Yoga system, which aims at the localized aspect of the Lord, the Paramatma, it has been experienced that many yogis, such as Vishwamitra, fall down. But bhakti yogis, when approaching the Supreme Personality of Godhead, never come back to this material world, as it is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Yad gatva na nivartante. Upon going, one never comes back. Tyakta deham punarjanma naiti. After giving up this body, he never comes back again to accept a material body. Nirvana does not finish the existence of the soul. The soul is ever existing. Therefore, nirvana means to end one's material existence, and to end material existence means to go back home, back to Godhead. Sometimes it is asked how the living entity falls down from the spiritual world to the material world. Here is the answer. Unless one is elevated to the Vaikuntha planets, directly in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is prone to fall down either from the impersonal Brahman realization or from an ecstatic trance of meditation. Okay, after reading this sentence right here, how can somebody say that the jiva fell from the spiritual world? I do not get it. Sorry. Another word in this verse, Bhagavad Bana, is very significant. Bana means arrow. The Bhakti Yoga system is just like an arrow aiming up to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Bhakti Yoga system never urges one toward the impersonal Brahman. The Bhakti Yoga system never urges one towards the impersonal Brahman effulgence, or to the point of Paramatma realization. This Bana, or arrow, is so sharp and swift that it goes directly to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, penetrating the regions of impersonal Brahman and localized Paramatma. Taritan me vijanihi yataha mandadhir hare sukam buddheya durbodham yosha bhavaranugrahat. The reason I always bring up this, like, how can anybody think that the jiva falls from the spiritual world, is because that was a point that many people, that was a very controversial topic, and many people said that my Gurudev is teaching something different from Srila Prabhupada because of that point. And I just get it confirmed again and again and again and again from Srila Prabhupada that he says that nobody comes back from the spiritual world. I haven't found any hints even that I think it's just because people literally take going back home, and so how can you go back if you weren't there before? Yeah. My dear son Kapila, after all, I am a woman. It is very difficult for me to understand the absolute truth because my intelligence is not very great. But if you will kindly explain it to me, even though I am not very intelligent, I can understand it and thereby feel transcendental happiness. Purport. Knowledge of the absolute truth is not very easily understood by ordinary, less intelligent men. But if the spiritual master is kind enough to the disciple, however unintelligent the disciple may be, then by the divine grace of the spiritual master, everything is revealed. I like this. I'm going to share this quote on Facebook. Okay. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur therefore says, Yasya Prasadad, by the mercy of the spiritual master, the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavat Prasad is revealed. Devahuti requested her great son to be merciful toward her, because she was a less intelligent woman and also his mother. By the grace of Kapila Dev, it was quite possible for her to understand the absolute truth. even though the subject matter is very difficult for ordinary persons, especially women. Let me just say this. Okay. Maitreya Uvacha Vidit Viditvartam Kapilo Maturitam Jatasneho Yatra Tanvabhijata Tatvam Nayam Yat Pravadanti Sankyam Provachavai Bhakti Vitana Yogam. Sri Maitreya said, after hearing the statement of his mother, Kapila could understand her purpose, and he became compassionate towards her because of being born of her body. He described the Sankhya system of philosophy, which is a combination of devotional service and mystic realization as received by disciplic succession. What? Pranams, Indira. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Devanam Gunalinganam. What time is it? Okay, we still have time. Anushavika Karmanam Satta Evaika Manaso Vritti Swabhaviki Tuya Animita Bhagavati Bhakti Siddher Kariyasi. Translation. Lord Kapila said, the senses are symbolic representations of the demigods, and their natural inclination is to work under the direction of the Vedic injunctions. As the senses are representatives of the demigods, so the mind is the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The mind's natural duty is to serve. When that service spirit is engaged in devotional service to the Personality of Godhead without any motive, that is far better even than salvation. This is really nice. The mind's natural duty is to serve. When that service spirit is engaged in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead without any motive, that is far better even than salvation. Purport. The senses of the living entities are always engaged in some occupation, either in activities prescribed in the injunctions of the Vedas or in material activities. The natural inclination of the senses is to work for something, and the mind is the center of the senses. The mind is actually the leader of the senses. Therefore, it is called sattva. Similarly, the leader of all the demigods who are engaged in the activities of this material world, the sun god, moon god, Indra, and others, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The leader of all the demigods who are engaged in the activities of this material world. So the leader of the sun god, the leader of the moon god, Indra, and others, the Supreme Personality. Sorry, I misread that. It is stated in the Vedic literature that the demigods are different limbs of the universal body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Our senses are also controlled by different demigods. Our senses are representations of various demigods, and the mind is the representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The senses, led by the mind, act under the influence of the demigods. When the service is ultimately aimed at the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the senses are in their natural position. The Lord is called Hrishikesha, for he is actually the proprietor and ultimate master of the senses. The senses and the mind are naturally inclined to work, but when they are materially contaminated, they work for some material benefit or the service of the demigods, although actually they are meant to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The senses are called Hrishika, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is called Hrishikesh. Indirectly, all the senses are naturally inclined to serve the Supreme Lord. That is called bhakti. Kapila Dev said that when the senses, without desire for material profit or other selfish motives, are engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is situated in devotional service. That spirit of service is far better than siddhi, salvation. Bhakti, the inclination to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is a transcendental position far better than mukti, or liberation. Thus, bhakti is the stage after liberation. Unless one is liberated, one cannot engage the senses in the service of the Lord. When the senses are engaged either in material activities of sense gratification or in the activities of the Vedic injunctions, there is some motive. But when the same senses are engaged in the service of the Lord and there is no motive, that is called animitta and is the natural inclination of the mind. The conclusion is that when the mind, without being deviated either by Vedic injunctions or by material activities, is fully engaged in Krishna consciousness or devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is far better than the most aspired for liberation from material entanglement. Jarayatashu yakosham nirginam analoyata. Wait, the melody didn't complete. I didn't want to enter that note. Jaratashu yakosham nirganam analoyata. Whatever. Sorry. Bhakti, devotional service, dissolves the subtle body of the living entity without separate effort, just as fire in the stomach digests all that we eat. Purport. Bhakti is in a far higher position than mukti, because a person's endeavor to get liberation from material entanglement is automatically served in devotional service. The example is given here that the fire in the stomach can digest whatever we eat. If the digestive power is sufficient, then whatever we eat will be digested by the fire in the stomach. Similarly, a devotee does not have to try to separately attain liberation. Is it saying here that we don't separately need to endeavor to digest what we eat? That happens automatically. Is that what it's saying? So the devotee doesn't have to try separately to attain liberation. It's just an automatic thing that happens. Digesting is an automatic thing that happens with eating, and attaining liberation is an automatic thing that happens with bhakti. I think that's what it's saying, right? That very service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the process of his liberation, because to engage oneself in the service of the Lord is to liberate oneself from material entanglement. Shri Bilvamangal Thakur explained this position very nicely. He said, "If I have unflinching devotion unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, then mukti, or liberation, serves me as my maidservant. Mukti, the maidservant, is always ready to do whatever I ask." For a devotee, liberation is no problem at all. Liberation takes place without separate endeavor. Bhakti, therefore, is far better than mukti, or the impersonalist position. The impersonalist undergoes severe penances and austerities to attain mukti, but the bhakta, simply by engaging himself in the bhakti process, especially in chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Right, especially by chanting this Mahamantra, he immediately develops control over the tongue by engaging it in chanting and accepting the remnant foodstuff offered to the personality of Godhead. As soon as the tongue is controlled, naturally all other senses are controlled automatically. Sense control is the perfection of the yoga principle, and one's liberation begins immediately as soon as he engages himself in the service of the Lord. It is confirmed by Kapila Dev that bhakti, or devotional service, is gariyasi, more glorious than siddhi, liberation. Okay, what time is it? It's 7:51. All right, so I could read on a little bit more, but actually it's better if I end a little early today because I have a lot of work to do. And I think Indira Mataji also has to go. What time? But tomorrow, this was the first part of Kapila Muni's answer to Devahuti's second question, which was, what kind of bhakti will help to easily attain you? So Kapila first recommends spontaneous bhakti, and then bhav. And then he explains, so that's what we just read. And then he explains the characteristics of devotees in bhav, and then he explains Vaidhi Sadhan Bhakti. And the greatest benefit is possible only by offering one's mind in pure bhakti to me. That will be the end of the chapter, so we'll finish the chapter tomorrow. All right. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai. Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai. Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtara Shata Shri Śrīmad Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Shri Gurudev Ki Jai. Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtara Shata Shri Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtara Shata Shri Bhakti Vedanta Sai Maharaj Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtara Shata Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtara Shata Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitil Vishnu Mahabhagavat Srila Gopakishoras Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Vishnu Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Padadash Raghunath Shad Gosai Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gopashad Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Kshetra Mandal Gaur Mandal Vraja Mandal Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sarva Abhishta Bharata Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Radhakund Shamakund Ki Jai. Shri Mona Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya Ki Jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Ki Jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Krishna Vashachar Krishna Bhakti Padadevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha. Vacha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyai Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandava Pranams. See you all tomorrow.